Hello, everybody. So welcome to our Christmas Business Forum. My name's Kerry Daly and I manage the Camberwell Traders Association. And we usually run regular business events for the networking events for the Camberwell Business Precinct, usually in person and usually at this time of the year over drinks and nibbles. So I hope you've gathered together yourself a glass of wine and can sit back and relax, enjoy this evening, and maybe next time the drinks will be on us. So our business operators in Camberwell, like the rest of Melbourne, have had a really tough year. And we realised we needed to adjust our marketing to deal with the COVID crisis. And very fortunately, many years ago, we engaged a young digital agency, as they were then, called Assemblo, here in Camberwell back in those days, to help us develop our online marketing. So we were really well positioned, fortunately, unlike a lot of other organisations, because we had a really extensive database and a robust digital marketing strategy that we could turn to. And it enabled us to quickly communicate with our traders and customers and keep them informed as the traders were changing their circumstances, their trading conditions. And we could also easily share information to both them and customers about what was going on, to share with them business regulations, changing regulations, and business support that was available to them. So we were also able to change planned events that we had and put them online and still be able to regularly engage with our community and keep the brand out there. So James McInerney from Assemblo is going to be our guest speaker tonight. He, of course, is one of the founding directors of the company, which is now a full-service creative marketing agency with a really diverse range of clients from all sorts of industries. And what I value most about them as an agency is that they genuinely care about helping business succeed. They've worked very closely with us over the years to really get involved in all aspects of our business. And they totally understand that good marketing is a mix of the traditional core aspects of marketing and the evolving digital technology to create appropriate campaigns that suit individual businesses. So James is going to talk with us tonight about 2020. To look back over what's been a crazy year and reflect on how companies have tackled the challenges and what lessons have been learnt and how we can be better prepared for the future and be more flexible for when life throws curveballs and things like, a global pandemic. And hopefully that won't happen again. But to tell us more, please let me pass you across now to James McInerney from Assemblo. Thanks, James.
As Kerry said, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I think you're overselling me in some ways, but thank you nonetheless. So, I thought, and also you can see my kitchen backdrop, I thought it was appropriate considering we're talking about, the year that's been 2020 and all the things we've had to do. And one of the major things is people have had to work from home. So hopefully nothing disastrous happens in the background through this call, but I'm sure we'll be okay. I've also got a few housekeeping things. So as you'll see on this presentation, I think with you guys, it's at the bottom of the screen. It should be a Q&A button. So if you do have any questions you'd like to ask of me, feel free to ask them there. So just type them in. If they're a bit sort of difficult or maybe not on what I'm actually talking at the time, I'll wait to the end, but I'll endeavour to answer them as I go. So feel free to go crazy on there and ask them, and I'll see how good I am. Okay, so and we'll go back to the presentation. So introduction. So just to give you a bit of an introduction around why I guess I'm the person doing this talk and I'm talking about is with Assemblo, as Kerry touched on, we've got a range of clients from startups to SMEs right through to large businesses like state government and also across multiple sectors. So recycling companies, retail, trade associations to building associations, property sales, you name it. And because of that, we had an interesting view, I guess, to how people have dealt with COVID, and equally every single time there's been a new announcement or a new disaster, or how you want to look at it, how that flowed through, how everyone dealt with it, and then later on how they, in many ways, succeeded through it because they took advantage of an opportunity. So through that, I got quite a few learnings, I guess, and as time went on, we all started to adapt and get better and better and better. So that's sort of what I wanted to talk with you guys today, because the main thing is I really want to look at those learnings we got, and then how can we go into the future from here better for it, I guess. So the first thing is, when I talk about business, I'm going to be focusing on small business in this context. So how were small businesses affected? So I see there's 4 sort of major areas. So the first one is the product or service no longer existed. So a good example of that would be if you're in the wedding industry. So all of a sudden overnight, or any event, overnight your product no longer exists, basically. So people still want to get married, obviously, and run weddings. But if you're a wedding planner, for example, you just can't do it. And there's stories of people having like, I've got 80 people in the books and they keep them postponing. So the product that they're actually, or service they're providing, just doesn't exist. There's many examples of that. Second thing is you're unable to deliver the product using your usual methods. So again, let's say a retail shop example, the way you deliver your product, someone comes in to your store, pick up what they want, and they come to you and they pay for it. Or if you're a coffee shop, you sit down, they serve you, and so on and so forth. Now they're just unable to do that because the doors are shut. So how do we now deliver our product to people up to this point? The third one I would say is ways of communicating with customers needed to change. So again, even though people do have methods, so they're using social media and ads and stuff like that, by and large, particularly with retail, it was still within their store. So somebody would walk past, they know of the store already being there from experience, word of mouth, what have you. They see nice signage, they come into the store, and then when you're in the store with them, they can communicate through, ticket pricing with the customer service, et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, this is gone. So they've had to change the ways they communicate. And the final thing is, and this is the one that I found quite interesting as well, was the pricing model. So a lot of people, it's no longer relevant. A lot of people, they solve the other problems to then realize that what they were providing at a certain price point, the market or the customers no longer saw it as worth that price anymore, I guess. So people have had to change their pricing and change their modeling. I'm not just talking about making it cheaper, they just had to change how they presented it to people. So they're the 4 key areas I really saw that were affecting businesses. So secondly, then, how did small businesses pivot? So I use that word because it's been thrown around quite a lot, so it seems to be the buzzword now, is how do they pivot? So the first thing I think everyone leant into was adopted new technologies, because they had to. So up to this point, particularly in retail and service businesses as well, most people weren't really adopting it. So I know it's like, social media, obviously is what we do. It's our bread and butter. We have, digital advertising, social media, all that sort of stuff. But so many businesses still just weren't doing it, or not doing it properly. It's a token gesture kind of thing, because basically people coming into their store was enough for them to make the money that they wanted to, pay for their lives and whatever they wanted to do. So all of a sudden that has just now stopped. They're unable to do that. So they've been forced to go, well, how can we survive? And a lot of the time that was technology that stepped up to solve that problem. So examples of that would be e-commerce is an obvious one. So all of a sudden they've got a website now, they can actually still sell through the website. Some people had e-commerce, but it didn't really work, or they hadn't put any money into it. Some people had no e-commerce at all, so they've had to work out quick methods they could do rather than build their own store. So through things like Facebook Marketplace, things like that. Even just their basic normal websites. A lot of people still didn't even have websites yet. So when this happened, they had no ways to communicate to their customers and whatnot. So a lot of people got websites for the first time, or even their existing websites, they were broken, or they didn't work very well. It was hard to navigate, so they had to update things. Other things people got was all of a sudden there's new needs. So people needed to sign in when they come to stores. So people are like, okay, to make sure to help with the contact tracing. People originally were doing that on notepads and stuff like that, but obviously that was difficult, and you got more people touching more things, and obviously there's can you read everybody's signatures and details? So then apps started stepping in, and QR codes, which you see on a lot of restaurant tables now. So a whole lot of different types of technologies were getting adopted far more rapidly than you would imagine, because they had no other choice. The second thing I see is they utilize their skills and resources in alternate ways. So a lot of people, you may be selling something, but you're not aware of what your core skill may be. And a good example of that, which I'll touch on later, is a company who they made stage show like mock-ups and interesting things. But their core, and then obviously when shows can't run anymore, they haven't got a business anymore. But their core, they realized, was basically doing carpentry and making furniture and stuff like that. So they pivoted to making home office equipment, which obviously now all these people need home offices en masse because they can't be at their main office. They're working from home. So these guys knew what their core business was, and then they pivoted to that. So core skill set rather. So a lot of people have utilized the skills and resources that they have just in different ways. So they could go I can't sell what I normally do, but there's a new way of doing it. And I'll touch on that later with other case studies and whatnot. The third thing would be updated their delivery methods. This is an obvious one, which we've all seen, basically home delivery. So I think long term, I think Victoria actually will be in front because of this, because we've had 2 major lockdowns. So everybody really had to lean into home delivery type options. So as we saw, the Australia Post of the world, they were really doing well, but then almost like they got overloaded. So then people have now started going back to doing their own home deliveries and all sorts of variations of how that works. But basically home delivery just became a huge thing because there was basically no other way of getting products to customers in your house. And then the final thing was they changed their pricing models to reflect their new offerings. And there's an example of that would be there's a restaurant, so a steak in a restaurant is worth a certain amount, and that's fair enough within the restaurant environment. But now that it's in a cardboard box being delivered to your house, is it still worth that price point? And often I would say no. So ways around that, people have had to change it to say, maybe we do the steak at a price, but then we charge the potatoes and the peas or whatever else comes with that steak. It normally would come as part of it. We charge them separately. So people are still keeping their profit, but it's just communicating the price in a different way. So it's still seen as valuable to the client, so they can still keep their margins, et cetera, to run their business. So they're the 4 main areas I think people pivot and change. Now I'm going to go through some examples. So I've tried to use examples that are from a local area where possible. So I'm sure we all know of Dymocks, and particularly Dymocks Camberwell. So as being part of a franchise, they didn't have a strong online presence as the Camberwell store itself, because the franchise itself is a good e-commerce platform and it can service sales in that way. But the Dymocks store itself, not so much. The other thing is they also don't have home delivery options or anything like that. So when the store was forced to shut, so they couldn't actually offer, how the problems they have there is, how do they get the product to the customer? How do they communicate to the customer this new way of doing business? And also how the customers actually purchase things as well. So with the delivery option side of things, the owner took it upon himself to basically deliver himself, which is one real wonderful example I like to give, because a lot of owners originally were like, oh, I can't do delivery. Who do I use? What service can I use? Or I don't even know where to begin. But when you really think about it, do you have a car? Do you have a van? It's like, maybe you've got some free time now. It's like, you've got to do whatever it takes to survive or get through this period of time. So he really took upon himself to do deliveries. In terms of communicating with the customer base, he engaged with an agency to help run social ads to put out the offer. And the offer that he was doing was 2-day turnaround, free delivery for locals. There was other elements to it, but that was the core thing. So that's a really good, strong selling point. So he communicated that through social media ads, leading back to a lander, which the agency made. And it was, even though they didn't have e-commerce set up because there wasn't enough time to get that done quickly, instead it was pushing to a form and encouraging people to either fill in the form, email or phone, letting them know what they want. So that is a really good example of, it's not the most sophisticated way, I guess, but in the short term, have to get it done. There's a perfect example of what they did, and it worked really well. And they managed to trade quite well through that period of time while they were shut down. So that's one thing. So second thing is, so in the hospitality space, so this is a coffee shop called Custodian Kitchen in Moorabbin. So a really successful, thriving business, but they they're a startup by all means, and they just really started to hit their stride, and then COVID comes along. So once again, all of a sudden now, how they do their business has been removed. Their place has been removed. So there's two things they did. One, they reached out to their existing suppliers, and like any restaurant, they've got good supply chains with, fresh produce, abattoir meat, things like that. So basically leverage those supply chains to go, can we get a product that we can then push out to our existing audience? So they got a barbecue pack and they got a fresh veggie box pack. So I got a barbecue pack delivered to my house. My business partner got one full of fruit and veg and stuff like that. And again, this particular business owner, he delivered that himself. So once again, that's a good, quick, short way of making extra money. It's a whole new revenue stream for them. In terms of their existing model, obviously they, being a coffee shop, they're still allowed to provide coffees. So now they're doing the coffees, but that's only so much, right? So now all of a sudden you still haven't got all the dining element there. So what they chose to do is provide meals that complement the coffee. So, and they were quick, easy things you could take away. So, which were things like toasties and whatnot. So, but by doing that, now their average spend per customer was lowered. So even though it's now, people coming in are now happy to buy some food, buy some coffee, and it makes sense to purchase in that regards, the overall spend was now lowered. So it was really important to then move more people through, I guess. So they really focused on efficiencies to work in this scenario. So they were able to get a lot more people through. So they initially had a drop in revenue, but then next week they lifted, and then after that they actually started making more money than pre-COVID. So that's a good success story there. Next I have Vision PT. So I've picked these guys out because this is the gym that I signed up to right at the beginning of lockdown. So initially I was kicking myself because I'm like, I'm going to sign up, we're allowed to go out now. So I'm talking the second lockdown here. So we had a bit of free time in Victoria, and I thought, I'll do this training, it'll be great. I think I did 2 sessions, and then we're locked down now. I'm gonna, and we could work in the park for a little while, and then it was just doing it from home. So initially I was a bit suspect about going, is this going to work? I'm just at home. Am I getting my value for what I'm paying for? Because as part of these guys, they're PT led, but then you get to use the gym as much as you want, and they also have a lot of education sessions. Like they take you to the supermarket if you wanted to, and they can take you through how you buy product and what's the right thing to buy for your health, and et cetera, et cetera. So all of a sudden this all went to online. But the things that they did really well is the PT worked really well for me. So I had my camera, I've got an apartment here, but there was room to do what I needed to do. They provided equipment. So resistance bands, they still did all their the training, but did a lot of it online. They also did a few extra like value add webinars. So they had the CEO Beyond Blue speak at one point there, which was quite relevant for the times. And so it was extra value adds. And the other thing too is they have a really strong community there, and they lent on that. So from my understanding is they did quite well through that period of time. They didn't really lose many customers. They maintained through the whole period. And then obviously now they're in a really good position to then continue the company on. And I stuck with them the whole time, and I ended up losing 10 kilos myself. So as my wife says, there's no COVID kilos, on me. So that's a good thing. So I can definitely sing their praises. So next, so this is Stagekings. This is the guys I was talking about before. So they're a production company that usually creates unique structures for live events and TV shows. So again, as soon as this happens, a lot of people threw their hands up and went, well, we're dead in the water. But these guys looked at what their core skill sets were and realized they can effectively make furniture, and interesting, fast, clever furniture, which people in home offices can use, which are obviously en masse, all of a sudden everybody needed it. So there was a demand. So they basically looked to see there is a demand, how can we bend our stuff to suit that said demand? And then as you can see, they've done extremely well. So they ended up now making 30 plus products, and they've received 5,000 orders, and they've got like 50 employees now. So that's a really good success story where they didn't have their existing model. Their existing model was totally destroyed, and then they've pivoted, and now they're actually, I dare say, doing better than what they were doing originally with their business. And then finally, there'd be nothing if it wasn't for some shameless self-promotion, is Assemblo. So I think this is good for a services industry. So with us as a company, funnily enough, we were already quite well tooled up for working from home. So a lot of us already had, we obviously had to do things, but we already had laptops. Everyone in the company had laptops, which we originally just had plugged in with screens or whatever. So I was able to bring them home quite easily. And we had most of our businesses run on cloud. So we were already quite used to, those sort of services. That was okay. But the real thing that we had to focus on was two areas. One was the clients. So a lot of what I do is, I used to do, I should say, is meeting up with clients for monthly, weekly, what have you meetings. I did a lot of workshops, which is obviously done in our office or someone's boardroom, and networking events, things like that. So a huge amount of it was me personally visiting people. So overnight that just disappeared, obviously. So we transitioned pretty easily to video conferencing with a lot of people, which is something we already had set up pretty well because we've had to deal with people internationally, but for locally on the ground, not so much. The other side of things was the culture. So that was a more tricky one because with Assemblo, a big part of, I believe, why people want to work for us is, do great work and all that. But I think a big part is we've got a really good team culture. We've got a good little family vibe going on. So, and a lot of the time that is driven by us doing, Friday drinks. When people's birthday, we make sure we take them out to a fancy restaurant of their choosing. We have big Christmas parties. We do all those sort of things. Overnight, that's all just removed. So it was like, how do we maintain our culture, a friendly environment with that gone? Because it can be very hard with video conferencing, obviously. And many of my clients had a hard time with that. So all of a sudden, all their staff, particularly people who live alone, and maybe most of their social life is actually through work, is just being ripped away. So with us, we maintained a daily meeting at 9 a.m. So we did that for the video chat. So that does two things. One, it gives people a bit of routine, because that's one of the problems a lot of people are having with mental health, not with us so much, but many businesses, mental health issues can be the routine was just destroyed. So people were getting up when they feel like, people are, getting up and working in their pajamas all day, which sounds like a good thing, but eventually it starts to take its toll. So it's like we have a meeting every single morning at 9 a.m. We all discuss, we all move through everything, work like normal. But the second part is we made sure that we talk about something social. So each person has something social they did from the night before. So that can be Netflix, it can be a show you watched. With my team, it's regularly a show you watched or a video game you've been playing. But it can equally be if there's something bad that's happened. So it's an opportunity for a bit of social interaction to happen. You can vent. It's a good way to keep our culture, but it's also a good way for, good mental health and stuff like that for the team. So we found that worked really well. Like I said, particularly if people are living by themselves and you're basically not allowed to leave or go anywhere. So it's a good way to keep that social interaction. The other thing we kept going is our Friday night drinks. So on Friday, 5 o'clock, it's a good way just to bookend the week. So even if not everyone always makes it, but generally we all come along. Once again, the video chat, it's not about work. It's about literally just having a laugh, having a drink, what you drink. We often sharing, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? I mean, at first it was a lot weirder than it was later. After a while it got normal. When it first started, it was, at one point we were all playing instruments on there for some unknown reason. I don't know why, but it was just a way of, getting through the madness which was COVID, because I think we all understand at first it was quite a daunting scenario. So the two things are keeping the culture, and I think that's working. Oh, yeah, and the other thing too is whenever someone has a birthday now, we're making a point of delivering them flowers or whatnot. So at least people are still getting a bit of that birthday thing going on, and we can all have a chat about it. And we try to make it a surprise when it does arrive. So trying to keep that culture. I think it's worked. So half my staff are actually on the call. So if anybody wants to disagree with that, feel free to jump in the questions and answers now. Okay, so what are we going for time here? So, okay, so what have we learned? Okay, so the first thing is, I think, prioritize your core skills. I cannot say this enough. It's like if you're fully aware of what it is you're capable of doing, when these adversities and these things happen, you know how you can pivot. So when you see a good opportunity in the marketplace, you can go, can my skill sets be able to service that new thing? A lot of people aren't aware of that. So I think keeping that front of mind is very, very useful. I know with my business, we've got a lot of journalists as our writers. So they don't usually work necessarily as journalists, but it was a perfect opportunity when there was like, new government incentives or announcements going on, their skill sets were perfect. They could, listen to the announcement, write down or take all notes about it. And then it was wonderful content for each of our varying clients. So it was a wonderful, be able to use those skill sets in that way. Second thing, keep a startup mindset. Other ways people have referred to this is being resilient, I guess. But my view is the startup mindset. And I've talked to a few traders who have done really, really well. And this is really the thing that we've just latched onto. It's when somebody first starts up their business, it's like they've got this, what did someone say? It's almost a naivety, an optimistic naivety to them. It will just be like, and every time there's an opportunity, you'll latch onto it. If there's something happens, it's not, oh, this is a disaster, I guess we're all falling down. It's like, no, this is something happened. How can we pivot? How can we do better? So if you have this mindset on a daily basis, particularly now, like every single day, it's like when something goes wrong, this is not forever. This is just for now. And then how can we move through? How can we get to the next level? Every single person who kept that idea that it was a new business again, and we're starting, that they seem to do really, really well. One guy even told me, he was just like, I just found so many opportunities. If I was able to produce something, I'd start doing that now. So one thing I really noticed is there's a lot of energy in a lot of people, like, what are all the things I could do? And now that we're out of lockdown again, it's like they've got their entrepreneur sort of energy back, I see in a lot of people, and this adversity is kind of given that to them. But if you just keep that going in your mind, I think it's going to do good for you. 3, give it time. When you're doing something new, so a lot of businesses, you've got to give it time to grow. Hence the picture is very relevant. So many businesses I've heard when they've started doing this and they started doing e-commerce, say, or whatnot, it'll be, oh, but it's only 10% of my turnover normally, or 20% of my turnover normally. It's like, you can't compare it to a business that was already succeeding and it's thriving, and then it's been cut off overnight and there's new things happen. You've got to wait for the market to transition to that. You've also got to advertise that you're doing that thing. It's got to grow over time. So everyone I know who's stuck with it, it's then been, it's only been 10% or something. But then I've seen them, a few weeks later, it's been, we're up to like 30% only or something. But like, yep, but it's growing. So the main thing is you've got to give it time, and you really can't compare it to the existing thing that was there and to expect it to work straight away. It's not fair, really. It's like when you first started your business expecting it to just kick ass straight away. So my view is anything new, give it time. Last thing is add, don't replace. So not last thing, second last thing. These new things that you've learned, I can't reiterate enough, is don't get rid of them once we all start back again. So in some situations that might be fair, but the majority of the time, this new thing you've learned, you should keep it there to have an extra source of revenue. So Dymocks, for example, they weren't doing home delivery before, but now when they reopen all the rest of it, they're keeping the home delivery because that allows them to expand their offering, be able to do more sales. So it's like an extra way of you making money. And I've got a huge amount of examples of that. It's like, you set up e-commerce is really ticking along nicely for you now. When you open your doors, you should keep both going, not go, well, now I can stop e-commerce. But then not only will it give you more revenue, it'll make you more resilient. So if something does go wrong in the future again, you have that to fall back on. So that's one of the main things I say. And you've spent all this time learning how to do it over the last couple of months. So don't throw that out. And the last thing is ask for help. The biggest thing I can say is so many people are just very much in their bubble, and I need to do it all myself. I think one thing we can learn is you can definitely lean on each other. So on a micro level, that's obviously friends and family, what have you. Equally, stores, they could complement each other so often. So my physio, for example, I wanted to get new sneakers because he was helping me. So I'm going to get new runners because they're worn out. He's like, I get a discount from this store if you go over there and tell you know me. That's a simple one, but it's just helping each other out, complementary things. Home delivery, you have no home delivery ability. Maybe there's someone in the area who has a van, they already do deliveries. Maybe you can latch onto their delivery system, that kind of thing. Equally, never before have we seen so much government assistance ever. Like, it's just across the board. There's so many different things you can apply for. Assemblo, obviously applied and actually, got funding to help us out with things. I mean, the main thing is look at JobKeeper. The amount of businesses who are like, I'm going to get rid of all my staff. I'm going to have to. I heard that so many conversations from so many people, And then when JobKeeper came in, that just leveled it out. Everyone just took a breath, calm a bit, and then made able to pivot, and we moved forward. So look what's out there. And on that point is the Camberwell Traders Association, for example, and obviously other associations when you're in the area, particularly with Camberwell. If you're a shop in the Camberwell Junction shopping precinct, just literally reach out to the Trade Association. There's a wealth of knowledge. They run campaigns all year. The website that has a huge amount of traffic, go to it. All of the government incentives and information that's out there is housed on that site in the Trader portal. So obviously that's a very no-brainer. Kerry Daly, if you're a business owner out there within Camberwell and need some help, you reach out. But yeah, just don't be afraid to ask for help. So the final things is the key takeaways is keep your core capabilities front of mind, be open to opportunities, give new ventures time to succeed, don't abandon what you've learned, and lean on your support system. So that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much for listening. Now I'd like, if anyone's got any questions, because no one's hit me up with anything, or me or Kerry, you can feel free to ask away.
James, I might just jump in for a minute there. Sure. While you get a chance to perhaps look and see if anybody's written in any questions. You can have a read through. And just say one of the other things that I guess came out of 2020 for us as a shopping precinct was we saw the amazing opportunity to remind people about the importance of shopping local. So we saw it as a real positive to re-engage with our local community and have them engage with us. We found people were going for their walks up and down the street and discovering shops they didn't know existed or new restaurants that had been there for a while. And for a lot of local people, they were leaving the area thinking they had to go somewhere else to find, the cool new local cafe or something. So that was actually something that was really important to us, because it really, without this opportunity of COVID, they wouldn't be walking the streets necessarily. And that's something we were able to also, we made sure that through our promotions through the year, we kept them going, and we came up with opportunities for people to win prizes if they subscribe to our newsletter. So we could build our database that once everything's back to normal, we've still got all these people that have engaged with us over this period of time that we can continue to communicate with. So again, that was an opportunity while they were at home and they're online and probably bored. They were looking at our newsletters and engaging with our competitions. So the other thing that I guess we did with that as well is made sure that the prizes that we gave were shopping vouchers. So when things got back to normal, we had already made opportunity for people to come in and shop. So that was really exciting too, because it was setting things up for the rebirth, which is finally coming to fruition. So, it wasn't all doom and gloom. It was certainly a really tough year, and I'm sure a lot of people have found difficulties and challenges. And I think James has really well addressed lessons that were learned there, and hopefully you've got something out of that. But also there were some positives, and I think that needs to be looked at and embraced as well. And if for no other reason that we remind people to keep shopping locally and support small business, that's a good one for me. James, is there any questions that you specifically needed to address?
Sue just said that I was just typing, but my keyboard's very loud, so I apologise for everyone who
should mute.
Yeah, no, so Sue just said she's arrived late, but our outdoor seating area is coming soon. So firstly, I guess, don't worry about arriving late because we've recorded it. So you can catch up on all the good stuff that I said, that's fine. But then with outdoor seating areas coming soon. So we've already got them definitely now around Camberwell. Kerry, do you want to elaborate on where they are?
Yeah, sure. We've, the state government encouraged all the communities to put outdoor dining out, but it was only very late in the piece that they came up with the absolute detail of what was involved. So councils were scrabbling to find out what equipment they needed to put in place, and it was sort of 2 days before they were about to sort of set up the outdoor parklets that we have in Camberwell. They found that they had to have all these extra fortifications and things for safety. So it's been a little bit of a slow process. So we've got now 5 locations where we've been able to, the businesses have been able to extend onto the street using the car parking in front of their shops and create little parklets, which is fantastic. And then other businesses have been allowed to extend along the footpaths and perhaps take up their neighbours' space with permission from their neighbour. So it's creating a better vibe. We've still got to make it look a bit prettier, and a few of the businesses probably need to kind of work out how to make it work for themselves. But it's, yeah, they're up and running, and will be running through till the end of March. If it works for the works for the businesses, they've got permission to run it to the end of March.
I think that's everything. Does anybody else have any other questions for us, or? I think that might be it.
So can you just remind us how you've recorded tonight's session, James? So anybody who didn't get to see it all, or couldn't sign in or whatever, where will this be posted? How will people be able to view this?
A very good question. I believe we're going to be posting it on camberwellbusiness.com.au. So it'll be up on there, and we'll do posts about it through our social platforms and stuff like that as well, and email everybody who's come today as well.
Yeah, so if you have registered but you just came in late, you'll be, you'll probably get a link straight away. But if you want to share it with other people who didn't get to see it, you thought it was worthwhile and they might enjoy it, the opportunity will be able to download it from the Camberwell Business website, which is up on the screen at the moment. So I guess I'll wrap it up, because if you're like me, you've done lots of Zooming and you're a bit over it. I do want to thank James very much, and Assemblo as a team. They were fantastic for us, supporting us through this really tricky time, and I know all their clients have benefited from their expertise. And I guess the points that James made that were really outstanding was that need to be flexible in your business, to be proactive, to keep a positive outlook, and therefore look at ways of how you can, instead of just falling into heap, look at opportunities that are presenting, and then seek help to put them into place. So if you're not an expert on e-commerce and you need help in that, go and find it. If you financially were immediately in a hole, look to the government, because there were handouts. So there were ways to get around this. The most important thing I thought was people, though I can understand that need to panic, needed to understand there's help out there. And one other thing, just while we're talking about websites and help, all that information that we got from the government, and it's continuing to flow, we created a trader portal on the Camberwell Shopping website, camberwellshopping.com.au, for our traders to be across all the current information. We also posted links for companies that were providing equipment that was relevant for COVID. So, safety advice, free downloadable posters, links to companies that are doing post-big screens, that type of thing. And that's open to the public. So even if you're a business from elsewhere, you're more than welcome to look at that trader portal on the Camberwell Shopping website. And we're keeping that up to date, as I think there's still some, the government is still talking about some business grants that have now been extended to the end of December. So have a look at that. And the other thing I think that the point that James made that's really relevant is lean on each other. We're a very strong community in Camberwell. A lot of people work together in networking events. We always have a lot of people that are regular attendees. And just, work with each other if there's ways to support each other through these times. So all in all, we'll wind it up. Thank you, James. Thank you, Assemblo. Thank you, everybody that tuned in. And as I said, share it if you thought it was relevant. Somebody else might enjoy the opportunity to hear a bit more about how we all cope with 2020. And let's look forward to 2021. Have a very Merry Christmas, a safe and Happy New Year. And hopefully we'll see you in person in 2021. Thank you, everybody.